People think that AI is able to make, for example, hiring decisions and essentially like reject them or move them forward in the process, but that's not entirely true because
I mean, we've been waiting for this episode. You were kind enough to come on a weekend, and we're like 6 hours apart. So I know it's nighttime for you. So I'm incredibly grateful that we get to chat. But you're doing so much wonderful good and having a great impact in the recruitment and onboarding space for big companies, enterprise companies, all the way down to the smaller startup companies that need some help with their recruitment and their onboarding. And I feel like, you all of your content demonstrates and proves that you are carving a new path for recruitment. So, all of that said, and all of the wonderful things we're going to get into, what has been top of mind for you lately when it comes to just the hiring world? We were just talking about layoffs and how those are affecting a huge number of people. What's top of mind right now for you that you're passionate about?
absolutely, I would love that question. Like just as we were speaking, a second ago, it hurts so much to see how many thousands of people need to like post their open to work signs and think that they're gonna be, ashamed and shamed for it. Jobs are at the center of our lives. When we're looking at recruitment as an industry, we usually forget it because recruitment, when you look at it, is more of an administrative process that requires a very high amount of emotional intelligence. So what you then look at is, okay, you have to streamline that process, but while you're trying to streamline that process, you basically lose the human because of the volume. So that's a massive problem. One thing that I can easily say that right now, if you are an employee, let's say you're a small business, you have 20 employees and you're gonna hire a software engineer. What I'm hearing a lot from a lot of people these days is, well, I'm never gonna post that job on LinkedIn because I know that I'm getting all these spam applications. And a few years ago, what had happened is the exact opposite. When you needed someone, you would go out on LinkedIn and you would post that job and then you would network and you would find that person. But now it's impossible because second that someone hits easy apply or even fills out a form that you have, 80% of them are automatically like unqualified applicants. It's just they're not meeting your qualifications and people are just so I don't want to use the word desperate, but that's how, the term was we basically self coined that term because we were at a point where hey, like my life is suffering because I'm not able to like pay for my children expenses, my familyhood, and I'm not able to build a life for myself. So I really need this job was the motivation that, people went to apply those jobs with. And then the recruiter basically is looking for motivation, right? Because like that's what we were trained for. How does this person meet the qualifications of this employer of this business? And the second that someone says, "Well, I'm looking for a job because I need this," and that despair creates a lot of bias in many recruiters. And I'm not going to deny this. So many people are talking about this, and it's really really devastating to see that we have lost the basics of being human. And I think that we're seeing that breaking apart and like basically we the breakdown of that in recruitment and in one interview, like have one interview in this space be one of those 500 candidates that are applying and being into the pipeline. You're lucky if you get an interview, but 90% of the candidates don't even get responses or automatic messages that basically are, based on a one pager or based on a keyword search. And candidates think that AI is making those hiring decisions right now, which is not also true. Recruitment is the industry that has so many myths. Like, people think that AI is able to make, for example, hiring decisions and essentially like reject them or move them forward in the process, but that's not entirely true because there are laws that basically forbid those hiring managers, those like employers, from allowing an AI artificial intelligence to make hiring decisions for them. But there's so much like clickbait content online. The people who are not actually recruiters, who've not been candidates or who've not been really researching this process, create a lot of clickbait content that just, basically is distributed all around. And then we think that, okay, so there's this, AI that screens for the why keywords on the resume. If design, this is, the ATS friendly resume template design, whatever. And all these people are basically making money off of people's despair. And I think that that's just humanity falling apart. I couldn't have, more words to describe it in this sense. And I think that that's really the top of mind for us right now. And we're always thinking, okay, like the bridge is broken so badly. How do we remember being human and all this process? How do we, among all this volume that we're experiencing, move forward for the better, and using technology for good, not to do what we did, and essentially that has led to that process.
You just touched on so many important points that the empathy factor, maybe we'll call it with recruiters and having empathy for the candidates, and then the understanding like the context and the content that's out there and how candidates, people who are job seeking, are maybe getting misled with how the recruitment process is currently working. And then the fact that they're also being taken advantage of, and technology is definitely not gonna be perfect. If humans aren't perfect, the tech isn't gonna be perfect, right? Uh, there's an easy way for people to feel like they're not getting seen or their qualifications aren't being understood if they don't align perfectly with a job description, which is also really frustrating. I mean, I think everybody listening to some degree has been through some kind of job search and candidacy process, and it can be really, well, you use the word despair. It can feel really frustrating for folks if they are not getting any kind of feedback or any kind of momentum. So, you and your company, well, you've an answer to that for companies to make a better experience and to find candidates that align better. So, tell us a lot about your company because people need to hear everything that you're doing and how you're changing the nature of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me first tell you why you should listen to me and how my experiences relate to this industry. Well, in the last 5 years before, going on to this journey of being an entrepreneur, I was actually a job seeker and an undergraduate even. And, in that journey, I got more than 13,000 rejections that made me feel like I am nothing. I don't have any words to describe that because on top of that, I got I found a job, but I wasn't happy, and then I had to navigate unemployment for 10 months, and financial insecurity. I think is the worst thing that someone can experience, and I know that you're also navigating that. We're all navigating that together. And those 10 months, let me tell you, made me realize, you know what? This is a problem that we have to solve. I was really, like critical about, okay, how can this become a like tool though? Like I know that empathy it doesn't exist in the process and I know that there are all these problems and how do you make the companies care? Like who do you keep accountable? So those were all the questions that I needed answered in my first startup, and that was really the first time that I started recruiting. I had 2,000 resumes in front of me, all these people trying to like work voluntarily for this, vision that I had my first startup. We had an employer brand, the culture, people working from 5 different time zones before we had a product. So it was a complete mess. But I have built the recruitment process, end to end from all the things that I've been like learning along those times. And then I realized when I had those 2,000 resumes in front of me, okay, like, I don't know anything about this person. How am I supposed to invite someone to an interview when I don't see the person, when I don't see the human? So, one thing that I want us to remember here, even if it looks like that we're moving to an opposite era, I assure you that we do not. Hiring is an entirely human process because you're being hired to work with other human beings. And therefore, it's really important that you have the right characteristics, the right mindset, the right abilities, the right inclinations to grow, the right competencies. So, we basically reduced that whole process into numbers of being able to depend on, hey, I achieved XYZ. And this, results that made my company grow like 50% month on month. That's great, but how do we know if you're going to be able to achieve the same result in my company? Maybe where the team members that you've accomplished this with, maybe your manager was really extremely helpful. So that was the main thing because I don't know your workplace. I don't know how it was like to work there. Maybe you were empowered or maybe you were neglected. Maybe, it was entirely like toxic. You couldn't do it, but then you found a way to do it anyway. Your resume doesn't tell me exactly who you are and who you were when you joined that workplace and then who you were after you, let me call it, graduated, because then you become the alumni, the XABCs that we are talking about. And I think that we lose a lot of data points in a resume. Like, I'm still going to call it data because what I'm trying to do, it's not okay. So, you have the right name or you have, the right background and let's hire you. But we need a process that really focuses on your competencies. What would make you the right fit? And one person, Constanti, who is an expert in hiring and has been working on the same problem for more than 20 years, educating executives, he's an incredible person. He says that there's no perfect candidate. You take someone and then you grow that person into the perfect candidate, the perfect employee by providing them the training, providing them the resources. So he says, for example, hire for attitude, not skill, because skill can be developed. But once you have that attitude, that's basically constant. If person does, their character basically. And we hear this a lot. So this could basically vary across different like levels of hires that you're making. It could be definitely different for an executive that you're hiring versus, someone who's less senior. But once you're still looking for that human being that you're going to be able to work with, that you're going to be able to learn from, that you're going to be able to provide feedback. So you're looking for coachability, growth mindset, leadership abilities, all the things that are going to help you carry to the next step into your business. And I think we don't assess that in the resume. Like, resume is basically a one pager, and then you're also supposed to limit your experiences. For example, like, I have 40 experiences. I've been an endlessly curious person. I cannot stop building things. And I'm then, overqualified, but I don't mean to be overqualified. I just, learning was the right thing to do. I was told that it was the right thing to do. I was told that we were supposed to be curious. We were supposed to, like, build and go after what we wanted to learn and learn other things. And now I'm, being it's a penalty against me. What was supposed to be helpful, and I know it's the same for many people. We recently ran a survey. Saying that, if you're a TA professional looking for a job, what is the most, the sort of the thing that is getting in your way? And people said, I'm overlooked because I have more experience than the job is asking me to do. And I do understand employers. I completely do. Every person is not the same and they don't deserve to be treated the same way. And Constanti and I, for example, like discuss about this a lot. He said that no one teaches us hiring. There is no school on hiring. There is, for example, like the management of human resources that you go out and study to, but executives and like we, for example, become founders and no one teaches us how to hire. There are not enough resources on how to hire. You're because hiring looks different for every organization. Let's say you're in a retail media or you're in the tech space, you're building a software or you're building a hardware. The requirements and the kind of people that you will require to hire in each stage will be like completely different. So how can you, onboard someone and be like, okay, figure out as if you're like a robotic machine and you're just basically expecting them to be able to be up for the task. All this, the TLDR of that is resumes are not enough, and resumes are not giving you the space that you need to show how you meet those qualifications, and we need more data points. And the reason that I'm calling this data points is because I need the employer, we need ourselves, and if you're a recruiter, for example, you need to be able to look back to that data and see, okay, did I make the right hiring decision? What were the points? What were the data points that led me to that point? Because then you're going to learn from your experiences. If a solution today is coming to you and telling you, you know what, I'm going to automate your entire hiring process and you won't have to lift a finger, that's an absolute scam. No software today can know your organization better than you do. And therefore, if a tool is not giving you the ownership that you need as a business owner, as an employee, then there's a core mistake there you have to be careful about. So going back to my own experiences, that's as I mentioned was the first time I had to recruit, and then I had to create this end-to-end recruitment process, and then I designed this 8-stage form, and someone told me it actually took them 4 hours to fill out. And, that's not the reason because it's too long, but the format of the form was entirely different than any interview processes I've been in. Because what I realized, especially in junior people, people don't know what they want. They're not given the chance to reflect. So the process that I've created was more reflective, more towards helping those people understand their inclinations because the students were applying, and I was also an undergraduate. People who recently graduate were applying, mid-level senior professionals were applying. So I was like, "Okay, do you really want this? Because this is how the journey looks like, and it's my job as a founder, as an entrepreneur to be transparent to you. I'm not gonna be dishonest and say, well, it's gonna be, shiny and bright, and we're gonna succeed, and there is a rainbow over there that will definitely touch." Um, that's not how it works. So, I need to be able to assess how you want to grow. And if you might, for example, prefer more strict environments, more, like stable environments, that's absolutely fine. That's who you are. But that's not what this business requires. And that's where we start talking about the fit. And this is basically the basics of it. And that's what recruiters are trying to assess. Let's say if I'm hiring for a startup, which I have, you would then, for example, be needing to demonstrate how resilient that you could be, how comfortable you are in uncertainty, how comfortable you are navigating, the abstraction in the instructions that you might get. Or, for example, you need to be able to figure out that there is something else that you need to do. And that something else is something that you have to entirely figure out yourself. So there won't be always training manuals written for an English stage startup. If you're the person who likes to basically learn things by breaking them, the startup environment is right for you. But if you, for example, say, I need a training manual for every single task I'm doing, and I really need to be able to learn first and provided those resources, then maybe move forward for a scale up or, for example, a startup that is in the later stages. And again, like that's absolutely totally fine. Everyone is made differently. Our brains are different. And you don't have to fit in or force yourself to fit in. And that's actually what recruiters are afraid of so much, organizations are afraid of so much, because mishire itself, the cost of mishire can go up to an annual salary or more of a person. Let's say, for example, your salary is 200K, and on average, I would spend 4K as an organization, hiring you. And then when you leave after a year, you take that implicit knowledge and you take all the investment that I have put in you, performance, productivity, etc., the disruption and the work. And then you also take and basically make me redo the work of hiring your replacement. And that's why, as an employer, to empathetically show you where they're coming from if you're currently applying to jobs, I have to really be careful in terms of who I select and move forward in those processes. But that caution has led us to layer the application process up to 7 and 8 stages, where now the application process itself has become a full time job. I've navigated this, but this is the motivation that they're having. So, if you're currently interviewing, let me just tell you before I get to the whole next stage of talking more about my business. If you're currently applying to a job, you really should focus on how you can be an asset to the organization in the long term. Show that you understand their business goals. Show that you are aligned with their growth, like mid growth goals, where they want to go. You might not have done, what they're asking for you. For example, they're asking you to grow a social media platform that has recently started. You don't know how to deal with it. But you can learn. Maybe you've grown on Instagram before, maybe Twitter before. So focus on those transferable skills and highlight them, because identifying transferable skills, especially for career transitioning, is the hardest thing to do. And today, unfortunately, we don't have the tools yet, but you have the power to show, you know what, I am coming from business development and I'm applying to a marketing position. And these are the transferable skills that I can apply because I have done XYZ and I want to grow myself in XYZ. So show that you're competent in your own way, and then you will basically be able to stand out. Um, Believe me, it's really not, okay, this is the right designer of resume, the right white keywords that you should put in. The only thing a recruiter wants to see, and believe me, we do manually screen those resumes. Um, it's more about being really concise and providing the digestible bits of information that they're looking for. That's all there is, because you're a recruiter and you're seeing thousands of resumes every week, unfortunately. And that's so overwhelming that 99% of recruiters today are burnt out. Um, so the problems in hiring are endless, but let me tell you what problem we're fixing and essentially how all that experience had led to the creation of Octopus, which is our business, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the disconnection that I have been studying, all these things that I've been like talking about, and it became just worse and worse over the years. I've been studying this process for 8 years, and I realized that the main reason that we're having all these problems, and remember that employer who's really, really cautious because they don't want to have a mishire, is because they don't have actionable data. So, how do we define actionable data? Actionable data is the part where you can say, remember, like what we were talking about, the data points. According to XYZ, this person is the right fit for our role. And the process has to be able to give them the XYZ. So now to get that XYZ, you need to be able to have a targeted interview process. So it's not just where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? We don't know. We don't know if another pandemic is going to come in. And that basically tells, it only tells me about your vision, your imagination. And if I'm assessing your creativity, that's the potential question. But if I'm not assessing your creativity and I'm focusing on your business skills, your potential fit, then it might not be the right question to ask. And majority of the interviews today start from point zero. But if they had the information about you prior to that, and if you had the information of how you fit to that organization prior to the interview, you both have actionable data. So, how does this look like? Let's say you're hiring to a software engineer position at Meta, and Meta obviously wants to know more things about you. You send in your resume, hopefully not AI generate your cover letter, or hopefully they're entirely not asking cover letters. It really varies in entire age process. So what you would do then is you would be sent, in a case if Meta was working with Octopus, that a targeted pre-interview that only takes 10 minutes for you to complete, and that pre interview has targeted questions that Meta wants to know about you before they move you forward in the process. So you might be saying, you know what, I'm going to get ghosted anyway. So why should I invest in my 10 minutes? So today, you're unfortunately carried across like different stages of interview processes. Let's say 5 to 6 7 is interview processes, the stages. um you're asked to invest more than 20 hours of your time per role. So if you were pursuing 5 roles at the same time, that makes 100 hours. If you were looking to do that 100 hours in a week, that makes, more than double of the real, like the legal working hours, which is around like 40 hours minus the 4-day working week. That's how much time that you need to invest. But if you completed a pre-interview beforehand, one, you get to know the requirements. In 10 minutes, you get real-time actionable feedback. Yes, I'm talking feedback. No matter what happens, you get feedback on your qualifications. And then you decide whether that position is right for you, one, and see how you were able to demonstrate your skills, two. And three, you now know how to exactly position yourself once you have that interview with the recruiter. Once you have basically that, because now the recruiter has the same level of data. So what we do is we collect your answers, we send them real time to the recruiter, to the employer, to the hiring manager. They're able to access your information in real time. And then what Octopus does is it scores the application answers that you've given in that pre interview based on the organization's requirements on a custom basis. So now you are scored equally, no matter your background, no matter your gender, no matter the years of experience you have. Maybe you're competent. We know, for example, students, software engineers that get incredible jobs right at the before even like starting university. And years of experience is not, the definitive point that we should look at here. So the same data is translated back to a recruiter. They're able to access your information real time. And then if they move forward in the interview process, how they come in is, okay, so now, John Doe, I know exactly how you fit to my organization. And I have specific questions that I now want to ask you because you've already given me the basics. It's not the basics that are covered in resume because, like, one thing that is incredibly, incredibly bothering us as Octopus, you're asked to create job specific resumes. And there are softwares that ask you to pay for them to create job specific resumes. You paste the job description and then you're supposed to fine tune and you pay 30 to $100 per month to those softwares. And it's just insane. Um the biases that we have and all these excuses that we make for them, but you don't have to do that. And our goal is that you never have to do that ever again because it's just it doesn't make sense. You are who you are, you have your experiences, and an organization might use a generalist if you see yourself as a generalist. So why not position yourself as who you are? And I know the biases that employers have, and that's why we're doing this so that you can get ahead of those biases and stand out in those pipelines because it's about who you are. It's about giving the space to show them who you are. And it's basically giving both of you the ownership of the recruitment process, the bridge in between you that was created by Octopus. That should have been there, since we started recruiting, but unfortunately we don't have that. So to wrap up, you go into interview, you have the feedback, you know what you demonstrated effectively and what you haven't, so you can now basically improve based on that feedback real time. But the recruiter also is going to now be asking you targeted questions. Let's say you are a product manager who's worked in a user analytics tool before in an early stage startup and you were up against a certain problem. And maybe you talked about it in that pre-interview. So the recruiter is going to ask, okay, John Doe, I see that you have tackled that problem in this user analytics company with XYZ method, but here's the challenge that we're having. So how would you solve that problem instead? So what you're going to do is now you're going to take all the knowledge that you've acquired in that experience. You're going to take in the question of the recruiter that's been asked to you. And now this is your real opportunity to demonstrate competency and demonstrate job performance. Unfortunately, today, majority of interviews do not assess job performance, but rather assess for the interview performance. So then what you have is ChatGPT readings. You're basically using ChatGPT as a teleprompter, and now it's like being a recruiter, the definition of that has changed so much that it's leading you to existential crisis. You're in an interview and you're trying to figure out, okay, is this a real person or an AI? Cover letter. Okay, this is the certain, beginning and an AI. One person recently, for example, told us that, in those hundreds of applications, all I'm trying to see is a human being, and there is not a single human being in that pipeline. So leverage this. This is what other candidates are doing. Don't be them. Be you. Be a human being. Show them how you can be an asset to them. Um, and essentially, that's really up to you to demonstrate how you really fit to requirements, the qualifications of that organization is looking for. And I know job descriptions are vague. We also know this. You most times don't know which specific business problem that you're going to be working on, or recruiters are really vague, or it comes to the salary, and basically the conversation entirely changes. But tread with transparency and ask actionable questions that the recruiters are able to answer. And if you're not getting the answers that you're looking for, then you might not be a happy employee either. And it might not be worth it in the end. So also consider how kind of a workplace that you would like to work in. And as I always say, like, we have turned the job interviews into an interrogation process where there's always a hierarchy until the salary question is the recruiter who has the upper hand, the best hand. Um, when that salary question is asked, then it's like, okay, we're offering above the market range. Well, what percent, and then the candidates don't get the answer to that. So we really are hoping for that transparency. And luckily, some states in the U.S. have laws against being able to provide that salary transparency, and not against towards that salary transparency. And the candidates are able to access more information, the compensation, and essentially how their efforts will be rewarded more and more transparently. Like going back to the interview process, because of this, you will be able to really show a recruiter in the company that is cooperating with you. It's basically them building the bridge towards you so that you can meet in the middle. And no, until now, we have not been meeting in the middle. Until now, you've been left in the dark. You don't know who you're going to interview with. You don't know how the interview process is going to look like. You don't know how many stages there will be. You don't know how many case studies you will be asked to complete. And to me, that's just unfair to you. And then you're asked to perform in the darkness, fully blind. And um, one thing that really I can give exemplify, for example, on Reddit, I once saw that candidates are discussing, okay, I received a psychometric questionnaire. Should I, answer all on the lows or like middle? Should I randomize? Should I select like the tops? We are at a point where the assessment methods have led to such a caution because we are now, cautious of being eliminated by those answers because we were exactly who we are. Now, even psychometrics, the purpose of psychometrics is not communicated healthily by employers. And we're in an age of AI, so I definitely understand, candidates in terms of like being really hyper vigilant into how their employee process look like, how their employment process will look like, how much they're going to be, how to put it, like detected or sort of tracked across the different apps that you're using. And I definitely understand this hyper vigilance. But, when it comes to that interview process, I can fully and comfortably tell you that you are being left in the dark, and that's not how future of hiring looks like. That was really a long one, but Rebecca, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
You are changing the game. I love that you call it a bridge because it's exactly what it is. And you're leveraging technology to support what needs to still be a human driven department, program, initiative, however it's set up in a company. And it still needs to be human led. To your point, you're hiring a human to work with other humans. So unless the robot is paying our salaries, then we need to make sure the human is making that decision on who's being hired. I just everything you described, all those pain points in your solution, it is the nature or the definition of innovation and everything that you are doing, and you have that experience to back it up, see, to be able to speak to the pain points and the struggles, and then you have the solution. So, how do people get access to your solution? How can they sign up for Octopus? Where can people go to learn more about all that incredible work we're doing?
So our website is journocto.co. Let me spell it out for you. JOINCO dot co. So not com but co. So that's a difference there. So that's our website. You can find all the information there and book a demo with us. And I would love to connect with you and learn more about your story. If you're a candidate or otherwise just a potential strategic partner who would like to discuss, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, which is CGUZ. So that would be C dot GUZ, and that's how you can find me on LinkedIn. I have specific event types on my calendar. So if you're a strategic partner, you should choose BR Tentacle so that we can basically figure out how to make waves together. And if you're looking to have a demo or learn more about Octopus, we have something called Hello Octopus. And if you're a frustrated job seeker recruiter who just would like to vent out and have a safe space, then I've also created one for you called A Better Way to Move Forward. So you can select any of those and we can talk. And I look forward to hearing from you.
See, you are so smart and so clever, and you really are making waves. I love that. I have to ask one more question. So, the octopus, did that come from anything in particular that evolved, or is it your favorite sea creature? Tell us a little bit about how the brand came to be.
Every person in our team today coincidentally has a relation with Octopus. It's crazy, but initially, my first startup was also called Project Octopus, and I now call it my stealth startup because we entirely are working on a different business idea. And the startup that I talked about, where 2,000 people applied, so that was initially Project Octopus. And then the reason of that is because I was sort of trying to build a productivity app for my ADHD, discovering my own neurodiversity and thinking that people, feel the same way. So it was more about being able to octotask seamlessly without having to context switch and essentially being able to, have those tentacles. But I think I as a person, like I'm an octopus. I'm in so many different places and I never could fit in boxes. I attribute that to my neurodiversity potentially, but I just, breathe in connections, intersections. So it's definitely not about specializing on something, but rather understanding that bigger picture and bringing down different components together. And now we're all tentacles. Like I have our small tentacles in the team, and everyone has a like deep connection with an octopus. And we were Octolabs like until recently. And then when we were rebranding, we had this like voting, and people decided, you know what, like I don't want to be Octo anymore. And people are using the Octo abbreviation anyway. But we are octopus. We are the tentacles of that octopus, and we believe that an octopus can solve the problem that our arms were not enough to solve. And that's why we say that we developed our tentacles, because the problem is so big and centuries old that we now cannot basically solve the problem only using our arms and hands. And we really needed tentacles to do that. But you are our tentacle too. You're our tentacle in terms of listening or support. You being here means so much, means the world. And I think that the future of hiring is being built not with hands, not with arms, but rather tentacles, and that's you. So thank you so much for listening.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You've inspired me, and I just love what you're doing to change the whole structure of what is a broken system, and the idea that we can all do that together. It's that broader reach and the collaboration. So, thank you for your message. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. It is not easy. I can only imagine how much effort and work goes into that. So, you are a true inspiration and a great leader for us all. And I hope that everybody listening, you will connect with C, find her on LinkedIn, learn more about Octopus and all the great work that C and her team are doing, because it really is going to be a game changer for a company. I love C, that I just have to say, I love that you focus on getting to know the person, because we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and confident in their work and in the work environment and the people that they're collaborating alongside. And you're making that possible. So thank you so much. I think we're gonna have more conversations. See, you're just getting started. I know you've had a lot of years of work in this, but I feel like there's gonna be a great journey ahead and so much success. So, congrats for all the current success you've made, and then we'll look forward to having more conversations about this, because I know there's more work to be done, and it's gonna take all of us. So let's get the word out. Connect with C, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Bad Bosses, Great Leaders.